Can you hear? Can this? I hope I'm going over well. Um, all right. Anyways, I wonder if I should maybe turn on some extra light. Sometimes because the lighting will get washed out, but that's all right. I might need it. All right, hold on a sec. So I felt motivated to come and record a reading because my lovely Mimi, who I loved and adored for 14 years, she passed away last night. And it's been a really rough day processing that. And I don't know, just in the because of how charged all that is. I just felt like coming and giving something back to put something out into the universe. And I felt like using my butterflies and my animal. You know what? Like other readers that I follow, there's been like 3 to 5 different people who I keep seeing popping up with my wild unknown animal spirit deck. And I'm like, hey, I mean, I own like 18 oracle decks, right? But even though I own a lot of decks, this deck was one of the first 3 that I bought. And I super love it because, like, since I've had it since day one, sometimes I identify with animal energies more than I do human energies, Look, we're splitting on Firefly and Phoenix, Look at these fire energies of light. Light and rebirth. Ooh, splitting on a sea serpent in the Phoenix. These are both, the interesting thing about this deck is that unlike a regular tarot deck, this deck in particular does have a major arcana. They're totally different. And I like that they have all the animals are grouped up into 4 elements. And then even in the guidebook, it'll have like what this means. When this card appears in a spread, this is what it means for you. And they'll have like when it's in balance and when it's out of balance. We got a panther coming out. Hey, and the phoenix. The phoenix wanted to come out anyway, so it's hard to tell if this panther was meant to come out right side up. We'll just take everything as right side up today. So we have dragonfly, phoenix, and the panther. Wow, so I was just talking about my cat having passed away last night, and already so we have a feline energy. So you guys, wow, I wonder if this is a little bit of. So you know what I've always said about Mimi is that I used to say all the time that she was like my little sentinel. And so somebody had told me a super long time ago that animals have like, even though they do have spirits in them, their souls aren't exactly like humans. So since their bodies are kind of hollow, they're more susceptible to possession by different types of spirits, right? And when I heard that, I had prayed over Mimi, and I was like, may the Lord bless her and put an angel in her body so that may my Heavenly Father put an angel in her body and Nala's body so that they could never be possessed by anything dark or dense or bad. And, that they would also sort of end up being like mini angels who also abide with me in my residence, you know? And I've kind of always believed that to be the case. So I don't know if you guys like, if you happen to be somebody who knows me on Facebook or see my photos of Mimi, like sometimes her eye contact with me was really just something striking. Like her eyes didn't always, they always had something beyond just regular cat eyes in her pupils. Like I could look in and, you know, there was definitely this like cognizance present, you know? So, and then the Phoenix, you know, of course, is our death and rebirth energy, which is the major arcana. And then we also have Dragonfly. And dragonflies usually often represent like transitions to the spirit world. Usually it'll represent like an ancestor energy, usually. I'm going to move over this moth. And then this moth, what's interesting about the moth is I was just, because like I was watching and reading the other day and they were talking about moth energies. And I was like, well, you know, a moth is like somebody who's mirroring a butterfly. And my energy is butterfly energy, right? But a moth could be like the mirror to the butterfly. So whereas the butterfly is more like the slightly fancier, more elegant and out in the sunlight version, the moth has a thicker, fuzzier body and is out at night and also breathes faster and has can reproduce way faster. And then we also have the oyster, so we also have some water energy. And oysters are also like, you know, it's oysters that produce pearls, you know, and the pearls are produced through those little grits of sand they get under their tongue, right? And we also have some hawk energy that's a little bit inverted. So we got a little bit of air energy that's a little bit out of balance. So we have 2 air, 1 water, 1 fire, and 1 major. So there's no earth energy here. So this feels like, and then plus if we factor in the moth, that's like a 3rd air energy. So we have a lot of air energy present right now. Sometimes this Phoenix energy feels a little bit like Kali as well. It's like that death and rebirth, you know? Because it's all cycle of life, right? There's, you know, it's all a part of, it's all that cycle of life, you know? And in fact, none of us, humans or pets, none of us get out of here alive, you know? Everybody has a time to die. I mean, there's a time to be born, a time to live, and a time to go, you know? And we all have a time in this world. And when that time, you know, and especially animals who don't live as long. And my Mimi, she lived for like 14 years, you know? She would have been 15 at Thanksgiving. And, you know, so 15 in cat years is not so bad, you know? She's lived a long life. She was really spoiled and she ate great food and just ate well and lived well and was super happy. You know, the past few weeks have been a little bit erratic with her. And I thought she was just having like random bad behavior. But then I realized a couple days ago that like she hadn't eaten. And usually she loves to eat like constantly. She's like almost a human garbage disposal. So we have this moving cart, the moving butterfly. So this deck, this blue deck, is my butterfly life change oracle deck. So this moving can mean that somebody's gone through a death and rebirth, and now you're moving on from this past situation. I also feel like this moving on is possibly tied into both this oyster and Phoenix energy. So with the oyster, with that grit of sand that was stuck under the tongue that was causing the irritation, I feel like it's now produced this pearl. And so now it's not being a source of irritation anymore. So I feel like collective is like in this energy of what was happening before has been transmuted to the spirit realm. And not only do butterflies go through that metamorphosis, But the moth also goes through that life cycle metamorphosis as well. And if you're concerned about what this corrupted energy may be this, which is really interesting, that the same energy would have hawk and snake energy, because the hawk and snake are like almost mortal enemies. Like hawks will eat snakes, and the snakes will eat the panthers, right? So there's a whole lot of circle of life already going on up here. Oh, and behind the snake is the rabbit. Usually the rabbit is my energy, but and the rabbit would have been the earth energy. Yeah, that snake. Well, that is an earth energy. So there is some earth energies in there, but they're not really very prominent right now. So you may be an earth sign. I meant to say you may be an air sign or a fire sign or a water. But maybe we have some cross watchers in here, some earth signs watching, interested about other people. You may be having realizations and epiphanies at this time. So I'm going to put this with this dragonfly. I feel like something's been transmuted to the spirit realm, which is conveyed in this dragonfly. You know, dragonflies are often considered to be like spirits of our ancestors. So maybe this is somebody's ancestors also being present with them at this time as you go through the cycle of rebirth. You know, you have some ancestors watching over you to ensure that you're able to complete this cycle. So if you were having a hard time closing out a cycle, you're not alone. Somebody's there helping you. Yep. So you may have been having some difficulty with your finances. And I feel like this is also like we're this moving on, death and rebirth. So if you had an end to your career, I feel like you're about to get a new one. If you haven't had it yet, that may possibly be coming. So it feels like a death. So like anything that's come to an end recently in terms of money is going to come back around, and you're being guided to take the next step now. So if you've been thinking about opening your own company, launching a YouTube channel, launching a Twitch, anything you're been thinking about doing, this is the time to do it. But we have the end of an era is here. I'm feeling guided to take all of these just right side up. I'm not going to take the butterflies in reversal today. So usually I do take reversals. Usually when I take reversals, I'll take them as like somebody else's energy. We're not accepting nobody's outside energy today. I'm just not going to have it, you know. So we have end of an era. But that's also, again, this end of the era. It was the end of this finances problem. And you're moving on. And this is going to be represented. So I feel like the end of an era, the era that's ending is this oyster era. You're coming to the end of this oyster era. And you're going to move on. And this finances situation, I feel like the finances and the era, I feel like those are like what you're moving on from. You're moving on from those. And maybe you're about to have this realization or epiphanies as well. Maybe your realizations and epiphanies could also be what this next step is for you. So, you know, maybe you've been brainstorming for a little bit, like what you want to get into next. So we have get some rest, but it's inverted. But like I said, I'm not taking the reverse today. But what I do feel is like, since you're about to make this move and this shift, and you're either already just went through or are still going through this death and rebirth cycle. So I feel like Spirit's guiding you to just, you know, anytime you're tired, take that time to get extra rest, because you know, sometimes even like with ascensions and when we're having spiritual awakenings, it can really take a lot out of your body, you know. And sometimes even going through changes, even when it's changes that we want, sometimes it can be a little draining in the energy while we attune our bodies to this new environment we're in. So, you know, and there's not, you know what, and especially like in American culture, we get so hampered with this idea that like, we get so hampered with like that we have to always be productive and performative, and like not being productive feels lazy, but there's nothing wrong with resting, and resting is good, and sometimes it's really necessary. Part of having a healthy body also includes space and time for rest as well. you know like we definitely want to be balanced. So sometimes you can get to a place where you're resting too much, but sometimes you also need that rest, especially like if you've been through a process of like reconditioning your nervous system. So we also have memories, you know so which is like, especially like with the dragonfly, you maybe be thinking about somebody who's recently passed away for you. Here, hold on. Seeking and finding. So at the bottom of the deck, we have seeking and finding. So with it upside down, is making me feel like you probably haven't found it just yet, but it doesn't mean you're not going to. Um, you know, sometimes seeking and finding, like that time duration that we are seeking, and when we find it, sometimes there's a little, sometimes there's some, yeah, I ordered Chinese food earlier, and we got a fortune cookie, and it says that you never have to worry, like everything you need will always be provided for you. And it totally made me think of like, uh, um, that part in the Bible where it says, Jehovah Jireh, my provider, you know? It's hard me to think about that. But it also made me want to, like, bring out a fortune cookie. So I'm going to bring out a fortune, which is funny. Like, I'm doing a live, which could be a longer reading, but it's actually running shorter than usual. I know. Woo! So we have change, but that's represented in the, well, I felt called to use the life change butterflies, but also that phoenix energy. And so it says a change of residence, partner, career, or job is on the cards. You're restless and in need of a change, and that is exactly what is coming your way. Yes, remember where it says take the next step and memories? So, I do also feel like you should, this is maybe just a time, like, as you're preparing to make these transitions in your life, just give, like, when you reflect on how long you've been somewhere or wherever you're transitioning out of, you know, even if you have like feelings of regret, because let's face it, right? Most situations will both have uh, feelings of remorse or regret, but later on, it'll also be like things that, um, there's it's just like so much that, like, sometimes in the midst of the chaos and the transition, we forget to take a moment and remember that there's things we actually still were appreciating about a situation. And just because we appreciate those things about that situation doesn't mean that we have to not let something go. It's like, uh something that is like ran its course, and it's time to move on. It's time to move on. The cycle of life is here. The wheel of fortune is present. I'm not even using regular tarot cards, but for some reason it's making me think about the wheel of fortune. The cycle of life, the cycle of change, the cycle of time. We're in a transition of time. We're coming through. We recently went through that Lionsgate portal, and for some reason I've been feeling like there's something significant in this time. So we also have reflection, and it says friendships in your life may come to an end, and others could blossom and become stronger. So with others could become blossom and become stronger, so some of you may be experiencing some changes in who you're socializing with, who your best friend is, you know? Maybe you had a best friend who you found out they had that snake energy, and there were some things that you just weren't seeing about them. And it's okay to, you know what? You can both release that person and say, well, you know what? I appreciate the good times I had with this person, you know, even though they were in the snake energy, you know, everything wasn't 100% bad, you know, and I'll just be thankful for the good times and be grateful for the lessons I've had to learn through this. And I'm going to just let them go and move on to this calmer waters. So you also have signs. So it says your future positive direction will reveal itself. Any doubts and confusions will soon disappear. And I feel like this goes with this take the next step. So I feel like you're going to go through this reflection. The signs are going to be here. And I feel like these changes, the changes that are left for you to make, I feel like they're going to become crystal clear. So I feel like you're about to have these realizations and epiphanies are going to come clear. So maybe too, that's why you're being told to get some rest, because you were seeking and finding. You wanted to find answers. So now you're going to get these realizations. And in order to get these realizations, you need to get some rest. And once you get these realizations, it's going to open up these other things. And you're being also told you're going to be reinventing yourself, maybe rebranding. It says a transformation is taking place. Yes, enjoy a new lease on life. So that's this Phoenix energy that we started off with. And I'm going to end it there because I feel like every message that comes out after this is going to just double back and just repeat everything that we've just said. So that's it for this one. And then I don't know if I should just like, I don't know how to do clipping on YouTube, you know? Let's see if there's like a, what? And I don't know how to put in a timestamp right here. I don't know. I don't know where it's at. Let's see. Customization. I don't know where to put in the stamps if I want to put in a timestamp and then start. And then I'm going to clear the board and start something else. And then I will go and answer my messages in a minute. Whoa. Wow, I was about to pick up the deck and leave behind this realizations and epiphanies. So I bet, like, some of you guys who, if you watch this later on after the fact, I feel like you're about to have a bunch of realizations and epiphanies. So we'll do, like, 3 or 4 from the fairy deck, and then I'll do, like, a couple, like how I did a couple of these. I'll do a couple of these from the Whispering Woods. Oh, well, at least my tissue didn't just fall into the coffee, right? Okay. You know what's interesting? Like, even though since my cat passed away, dude, when she was going through her final like hours last night, like that's there's this song from Elton John called your song. And that was like playing in my mind for a while. But most of the day since I've been awake today, there's also been a couple tracks from Shallow, and I'll always remember us this way. Really been in my mind like almost all day. She was such a good girl. Alright. I don't know. I felt like those bottom ones really want to come out, but we'll see. So I really only want to take like up to 4. Look at these reverse energies. Wow. So somebody's watching who's like, wow, that's like, I'm going to turn them around anyways. I'm not taking anything in reverse today. I'm not doing reverse energy. I don't care about cross watchers. We'll take one more. All right. Bottom of the deck is believing. Hi. Hi, welcome in, Mystical. Thanks for joining. So this deck is my Fairy Oracle. This is one of those that has art done by Lucy Cavendish, who I super love. Like, I own a couple other Oracle decks that are from Lucy Cavendish, and I just super like her art style. So we have the Balancing Act. So I feel like this part of the reading is for, so there's somebody who's, devoted. So maybe somebody has somebody, yeah. So, all right. So this part is saying that, so there's going to be somebody in the collective who's been really devoted to somebody, but this devotion is either making you and or the other person unbalanced, and or one of you guys gives more to the other than the other person does. But when this chocolate brownie fairy appears, this is like giving yourself a sweet treat, you know? So, like, maybe you're in, if it's not a relationship, it could still just be a close friendship and or a partnership with somebody who takes more, and or you may feel like you invest a lot of energy into somebody who's not giving back to you. And so Spirit is saying, guiding you to like take this time to give to yourself. It's like you deserve a reward and a balance for all the energy that you're pouring into somebody else, and you should pour it into yourself. We also have Painting Poppies. So the Painting Poppies card usually talks about just taking time to do something that's fun. So like the painting the poppies is almost kind of like, it gives like that adult coloring book energy. So where you can just like get a page and you can either like get some cute like crayons, color pencils, color markers, watercolors, you name it, whatever makes you feel good, and just like take time to just color and allow your like inner artist to just breathe a little bit, you know? So, which, and that's a really nice, you know what? If you've been in a situation where, because I've been through that before with people too, you know? And I think we've all been there at least once, right? Where you get in a relationship or what seems almost like a relationship with somebody, and you just are willing to do all the things. And there, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you realize, like, dang, bro, even though I'm like doing all this for somebody, like, are they going to pour back into me? And so you keep waiting for it. And so you keep pouring into them. And at some point you start to realize, well, geez, you know, we've come all this way and this other person hasn't poured into me yet. And I feel like even though that energy is unbalanced, I feel like you're being guided to do these things for yourself. And I feel like this could be, you know, maybe you haven't, maybe you believed that you were loving yourself, and maybe you also believed that this other person really cared about you. And so you felt like, all right, well, right now the energy is a little unbalanced. It's a little inequitable, but I feel eventually it'll balance out. And maybe it will, and maybe it won't. But either way, I feel like this situation is playing out this way because you're being guided to really focus on self-love, to just pour into yourself, Um, even when we're givers need to be given to as well. So like, you could think of it as like, if you're somebody who likes to give and pour out, but you can't give from an empty vessel, right? And you could say, well, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to fill mine. Well, even if nobody comes and fills yours, you can fill your own yourself. I would say the past few years, like, and I get it. You know what? I was a big time people pleaser, and I was that person who was always used to be super, like, self sacrificial and martyring myself and willing to do all the things. But, we do get to a place where we just have to stop and say, you know what? I matter too. And even if I don't matter to these other people, I'm going to matter to myself. And so it's not that we're going to stop doing for anyone at all ever, but we're going to put a pause and take a break because we're going to go take care of ourselves. It's kind of like, which I don't know if you guys are parents and have had a newborn, but if you've had like a newborn baby in the house, when you first have a baby and your baby is like in those first few months of life, sometimes because their sleep cycles aren't always more than a few hours, you get a little sleep deprived at the beginning, especially if they have colic. So sometimes your me time is very limited. And so you're having to choose, well, would I like to take a short nap just to catch up on some rest? Would I like to go take a shower so I could just feel reinvigorated a little bit? You know, and that time you take for yourself as a new parent, you know, you're not taking anything away from your child. You're just cleaning yourself and rejuvenating yourself so you can keep going on. And this is that same kind of idea, but also applying it to every relationship we have across the board. Saying, like, treat every relationship as if they were your newborn baby. It's like, okay, yes, you want to do all these things for these other people, and that's good and that's fine. But also, don't forget to make this time to do these little things for yourself because it is necessary. It's very necessary. You have needs, and your needs matter just as much as anybody else's. You need to feel good. You deserve to feel good. You matter, okay? And if nobody's told you lately that you're important and you matter, friend. Okay, you matter, and it's really important for you to matter to yourself enough that you make the time, you know. So even if you just found like an hour in a week, let's say, like, if you're like, you own a business, or let's say, like, if you were a really popular or busy streamer, and so you have to be like on cam for like a lot of hours a day, and so you don't have very much personal time away where nobody's watching you or listening to you, it still encourages you to say, hey, squeeze an hour somewhere, do the adult coloring or have a little creative project, something you can just go do by yourself. Make a cup of tea or hot cocoa, get a little snack, maybe indulge in something. Like, even like, I'm diabetic now, right? So like, there's a lot of stuff I probably won't eat on a regular basis. But if you want to do a little treat yourself, you can maybe have a little bit of like a little cheating, so you can have like a little bit of food cheat while you're like doing a little activity, and you just do it for like an hour or two. And like, in this time that you take for yourself, it's really just pouring into yourself. And if because we saw this devotion and the balancing act, so if you've had a situation with another person, if you've ever had a situation where not only do people not giving back, but you feel like people have treated you unfairly, unkindly, somebody's done something that was unjust to you, in any of these situations, it becomes double important that you find time within that day or the next few following days to make time to do this for yourself. When When we experience something that is harsh on our nervous system, it's really important for the nervous system in your body to have that self-soothe reinforcement that this person treated me like this, but just because they treated me this way isn't necessarily a reflection of my value. How they treat me is a reflection of how they feel about themselves and their own inner work or their inner world. And I'm gonna do these kindnesses for me, and because I deserve it. And then we also have fairies out here. So you may be somebody who likes fairies and or have a lot of fairy energy around you at this time. I personally have a fairy garden out in the front of my house, and I'm like a big time fairy enthusiast. So a lot of fairies have butterfly wings, and I'm a huge butterfly enthusiast. All right, so I'm going to do the Whispering Woods, get a couple of these, and then I'll probably wrap it up and have a couple chats with people before I go to bed. So I have to go to bed early tonight since I have to get up and make phone calls in the morning and clean my house because you never know who's going to drop in. So as people, I'm sure as word gets around about the lovely Miss Mimi passing away, then, some people may want to stop by, and I need to just, my house isn't like, it's not like everything's a mess. It's just some things need to be vacuumed and swept up and all that good stuff. So maybe a thorough cleaning in the bathroom. Plus a thorough cleaning in the bathroom, that might be really good. You know what? I probably just need to do cleaning with some bleach in hot water. Oh my goodness. You know what? Sometimes bleach in hot water is literally the smell. You know what? I don't know what it is about that, but especially in a time like this. All right, so we have woods. Be like the woods. Calm, soothing, mysterious, and full of life. Yes. So, and I feel like that's this painting poppies in the balancing act. Maybe the fairies are calling you and saying, come out. You need to make a trip to be out to the woods and come out in nature soon. So, so you have some surprises. Under the ordinary stone is an undisturbed garden. So I feel like, with an undisturbed stone, I feel like this gives the impression that there's something in your life that's felt like it's always been a fixture of your life is going to turn out to bless you in a way that you don't see yet. That'll be really interesting to find out what that is. If anybody listens to this and then you find out what that is, come back and tell me what it was. That's super cool. Origins. Remember your roots. And then this roots is like the woods, you existed all your life before you became utterly devoted to whoever this other energy is in your life. So, regardless of how this story plays out between you and this other energy in your life, your life, you lived your whole life without them before this. And if they have to exit your life, you'll live the rest of your life without them too. Just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Do you believe in fairies? I believe in fairies. I believe in everything. I'm somebody like I believe in aliens, fairies. I just believe in all of it, A lot of people like to make it seem like you can only believe in one or the other. And it's like, oh, I kind of believe they're all true. At the bottom of the deck, we have joy. And it says, spread seeds of joy like a wildflower, and no doubt you will revel in the result. So, and I feel like this really kind of piggybacks on this. We keep coming back to this painting poppies energy, and I feel like this is really huge for you. So I feel like you should definitely indulge yourself in some kind of creative activity, something that allows you to just kind of go on autopilot, maybe some kind of hobby. Maybe it could just be painting something else. It could be painting miniatures. Maybe it could just be painting. Maybe go to one of those paint and sip or painting with a twist events where you can drink some wine and paint a picture or something like that, I definitely feel like this would be really good for you. And also here we have the flirt, So maybe you haven't felt too flirtatious. Maybe the situation with this person made, and maybe you didn't, maybe this other person you're so devoted to was busy flirting with other people and that made you feel bad, and, maybe you're like, why is this person flirting with these other people, but they won't flirt with me? I don't blame you. I that would be my thought of it. Trillium, I'm going to double check Trillium because, well, I'm going to grab the book. Where's my book at? Oh, there it is. Hold on a sec. Wait, hold on a sec. All right, so she is number 9. Ooh, you know what? Right before I left my ex, I felt like every place I went to go look as a perspective house to rent to get out of living here when I was still with my ex, when I was trying to leave my ex, and the addresses for some reason always kept adding up to 9s, and I was like, well, you know what? I'd be like, I was meant to come see this if it's a 9. Like, there was a girl that I worked with, and she would take me sometimes, and she even noticed that. Oh, yeah. All right, this is the one. Trillium is about self-love, and she suggests that you should write yourself a letter of self-love. So you want to write a letter to, like, either your 5-year-old self or perhaps your teenage self. And in your letter to yourself, you should, anything you have regrets about in life, where if you felt like, anything you felt like you didn't stand up for yourself when you should have, or something you haven't said to anybody that you wanted to, write this letter to your 5-year-old self and apologize to yourself for the things you feel like you didn't do right by yourself. Write this letter, and then when you're done with it, either burn it and or throw it away. You could always store it in a journal for finding it as a time capsule later on if you want to. So, but Trillium's page says, learn to appreciate everything delicate and gentle in your nature. Delve into that tender part of yourself that holds the cosmic parent and child. Go within and find the small child inside who asks for shelter from life's storms. Wrap your wings around that small one, giving love and comfort. See that child blossom within the unconditional love of the universe into a gentle being of light. Here lies the potential for all things wondrous. Allow yourself the nurturing that will help you bloom into the most that you can become. Too often in life, we see all the things that we do not like about ourselves instead of seeing how truly wonderful we are. And what a pity. How much further do you think you would go if you were showered only with praise, positive guidance, and support? There is a constant pouring out of these blessings upon you by the Creator. It is your job to accept it into your heart and life. Love yourself. Do not forget your divine birth into this universe. You are a divine spark of God's force, and nothing can take that away from you. It is through you that God chooses to express love on the earth plane. You are an expression and a part of Him, and the fairies recognize this in you. They are often perplexed that we as humans so often do not perceive our own divinity, something that comes so naturally to the elemental kingdom. They do wish to, however, help. They do wish to help, however, so follow their lead. Feel the natural grace that Spirit has put upon this planet. Attune to it. And through nature, we can connect to Spirit. Feel the love, the peace, and the comfort of divine spirit in all areas of your life. You are never alone. The cosmic parent is always with you. And down at the bottom of this page, there is an affirmation which you can say, which says, "Dearest Mother Earth and Father Sky, I am here to receive the love that is rightfully mine as a child of spirit. I bring this love into my heart and I rejoice. I give great gratitude for the pure potentiality that is me, and I allow myself to grow and to bloom in your light and your energy. So be it." And it says at the bottom, write yourself a love poem today. So I feel like you should definitely write yourself a letter or a poem. Write to yourself, write to your 5-year-old self, or perhaps your teenage self if you feel like there's something that happened during a particular stage of your life that you should probably acknowledge to yourself, just acknowledge it, and forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you needed to know back then, because how could you have known that you needed to know it, right? And that's it. So that's all I have for you today. I'm going to end this and go ahead and answer my messages. And for a while, I may be doing my recordings live. So I'll see about going back and editing this into splitting up the 2 parts. I don't know if I know how to do that. I guess I'll find out. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy.